They swore it was safe. They vowed you can eat it without worry. Then, they dumped it into just about everything, and worked overtime to ensure you can't figure out which foods even have it. Now, new research exposes the shocking truth about this everywhere chemical. It's not safe. It's dangerous and can even be deadly, as a new study reveals how this chemical you're almost certainly eating, perhaps at every meal, can cause cancer. How to avoid the dangerous everywhere chemical. I'm talking about a weed killer called glyphosate, but you may know it better as Roundup. It's used on genetically modified crops such as corn and soy, and has quietly become the most heavily used agricultural chemical in human history. There's a very good chance you're getting dosed with it, unless you know my secret. More on that in a minute. First, the new study confirms one of the most terrifying risks linked to this chemical. Despite the constant and empty assurances of safety, the new study finds glyphosate can increase your risk of a deadly form of cancer. Specifically, it can skyrocket your risk of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma by up to 41%, according to the study in Science Direct. The discovery has scientists behind the research declaring that they are now even more convinced that this chemical is carcinogenic. And frankly, I don't think folks should need to be convinced any further. The evidence has been out there for all to see. A few years ago, glyphosate was even added to the World Health Organization's list of probable carcinogens. Here in California, it's also on the state's list of carcinogens, which has led to a series of lawsuits, because when big companies can't fight the science, they try to stop you in court. It's clear by now that you need to avoid this stuff. But it's not easy. Because glyphosate isn't just sprayed on crops such as corn and soy, it's also carried to nearby fields by winds, by birds, and by bees. This stuff has turned up in ice cream, orange juice, honey and more. But there's a way to dramatically cut your exposure. Two ways, actually. As I mentioned earlier, it's used on genetically modified crops. Avoid GMOs, and you'll cut your glyphosate. That's not always easy, as the food industry has been working to deliberately confuse consumers and make it harder to spot GMOs. A growing number of companies are rebelling and now voluntarily disclosing them, or declaring their products GMO-free, so read labels closely. The second way is even easier and requires little reading. Organics, by law, cannot contain GMOs and cannot be grown with chemicals. Go organic, and you'll avoid glyphosate, and a bunch of other junk, too.